What's up, guys? This is Kyle from Wax Museum, and I am back with part two of my video analyzing a pair of Wilt Chamberlain shorts that Panini used for Philadelphia 76ers relic cards. And as you can see here, this is a pair that they purchased from Heritage Auctions on May 17th, 2018, and it started showing up in cards pretty soon after that. In fact, the first appearance was the Immaculate that came out right after that, which would have been 2017, 2018 Immaculate. And it wasn't perfectly clear when I first saw a 76ers relic card for Wilt where it came from, but I was able to piece some clues together and figure out it was this pair of shorts. I talked about that in part number one, but essentially it came down to two different things. Number one, there was this tag that was in the Platinum 101 that you can see there that it definitely matches up with the high-res images that you can find on Heritage. And then also on the back of the shorts, there was kind of a series of stains. And I didn't know if those would show up in cards or not. Well, eventually they did, and you can match those stains up. So now that I know what pair of shorts Panini is using, I'm always interested to see just how exactly they use that pair of shorts, because they do a pretty good job of trying to use every little part of it and get as much out of it as they can, because you saw they spent $6,600 on this. So this wasn't a cheap pair of shorts for them to purchase. So they definitely have to get their money's worth. So now I'm wondering, what do they still have left? And in order to figure that out, the first thing you need to do is to figure out, well, what have they actually used? So I went on Beckett's website, and you can look at checklists on Beckett, or you can search by player. So I searched Wilt Chamberlain. I narrowed it down to Philadelphia 76ers, and then I narrowed it down to relic cards. And this gives me a listing of everything that's out there. Now, that in itself doesn't tell me exactly what types of pieces they've used. I'm going to have to put that information together myself, but it gives me a big clue on what I might be looking for. So let's start off with just the plain swatches, just the plain white swatches. Those primarily went in 4 different cards. So you had in the top left, you had the Immaculate Remarkable Materials. There were 25 of those. You had the Immaculate Standard on the bottom left. There were 49 of those, and that's a pretty big swatch there. Similarly, you had the next year Immaculate Standard, which there were 33 of those, still that big swatch. And then finally, there was a set called Immaculate Swatches, numbered to 99. So there's a lot more of those, but they're a lot smaller. So I thought, you know what? I don't know if I can get exact measurements for these, but I'm going to do the best that I can. So I figured out that, well, I say I figured out, I already knew that a standard trading card was 2.5 by 3.5 inches. So I took a flat scan of one of the Wilt Chamberlain relic cards from the standard, and I made sure that that scan lined up, and it was 3.5 by 2.5. So everything would be the right proportion. And then I was able to measure that window as well. And I was able to see that in this standard card, there's roughly 2.25 square inches of fabric used. And they do cut them pretty close to the window size, so I don't think there's a lot of overlap there. Or you know, if you were to take that card apart, I don't think there's a lot of extra material in there. So if you're looking at 2.25 square inches, you multiply that times the 49 in the print run, just this card alone is using 110 or a little over 110 square inches of fabric. So then I went and I kind of did that with every other card here. The other Immaculate Standard, I just used the same sizing. And then the rest of these, I kind of had to guess. And looking at the one in the top left, numbered to 25, I think 2 of those would fit in the Immaculate window. So I just went with that measurement. It might be even more than that. And then on the bottom right, I think that 4 of those will easily fit in the Immaculate Standard window, possibly more, but that's kind of how I measured this out. And all of those measurements came up to 285.75 square inches total of fabric, which is quite a bit of fabric. And if you calculate that, it's almost 2 square feet of fabric. So I can't tell you what all hasn't been used, but I can tell you that somewhere in the range of 2 foot or 2 feet of square fabric has been used up, which is quite a bit. And that's not even counting this big section here that I'm showing you that's outlined that had his signature on it. They tend to save those for prime pieces, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I have not seen any of those show up in cards yet. So I believe they still have that, which is a big part of the front of those shorts. And then also there's some white material that was used on the pieces that were considered prime. So I didn't factor those in as well. So long story short, I don't think they have a ton of the white fabric left, but I think there is still some to make some relic cards. So, all right, let's go into the prime stuff and try and analyze what they have used. And then I can try and figure out, okay, what do I think they have left? So the prime pieces were mainly comprised of 5 prime remarkable materials cards. And then we had these immaculate swatches. There were 2 different levels of those that use this piping. One was numbered to 10, that's the gold. And then one was numbered to 25. So I thought, well, I don't know if there's any way that I can break that down and figure out how much of an area that would cover. But then I looked at it, of course I can, or at least I can attempt it because it's stitched. And that's what I tried to do. So I went down and I used Heritage's high-res images. I went down one side up until where it forks toward the bottom of the shorts. And I counted 90 stitches or 90 loops, or I don't know what the technical term for that is. I'm just going to call them stitches. I counted 90 stitches. So then I figured, okay, that's obviously going to be the same on the other side. And then I used paint to kind of superimpose the side over the bottom, and that matched up as well. So they're pretty much equal parts. As you can see here, I've got left and right, and then the 2 bottom sections. And then where it forks, I kind of counted those. If you combine those, I think it'll make one section that's about the same size. And then, of course, there's the 2 on the back as well. So that makes for 7 sections with 90, somewhere in the range of 90 stitches a piece, which makes for 630 stitches. And stay with me, I know this is getting kind of technical here, but if you look at the ones that already exist, each relic has somewhere between 6 to 8 stitches, and we're going to assume that we lose some when they're actually cutting these apart. So let's call it an even 10 stitches for each prime piece of material here. If they have 630 stitches and each piece takes up 10 of them, then they could make 63 prime relics based off of what material they have. And we've seen roughly 40 already. So my guess is that there's enough left for around, well, technically the math would be 23, but I'm gonna say roughly around 25 similar pieces. So there is some prime material left if we're talking about these piping pieces. Okay, next up, there's another level of prime, which would be the laundry tags. And you've seen one of those already, and you can see that matches up with what's inside the shorts. And I don't know that stamped number. I don't know if that was originally there, or that stuff where numbers have been written on, that was written on later. So I don't know what all is going on there, but as far as I know, we have only seen that one tag. And there is one of one relic card for Wilt that I cannot find a picture of. I don't even know if it's been pulled yet. And that's from the Remarkable Materials set. It's the 101 version. So I looked and saw, okay, I don't even know if it's going to be a tag technically. So I looked up every player that I could find, and I think I found 13 of these. And as you can see, the first 10, no tags are used. Even though they used a lot of tags in subsequent years of that set, no tags are used. Well, I found 3 more, and eventually I did find one tag in that BJ Armstrong card. So I can't verify if they used a tag or just a piece of piping on this. I'm guessing, like for Kobe, they've just got a regular patch. So I'm guessing for Wilt, they used just piping, but I can't confirm that 100%. Now, another piece that I mentioned earlier that's unused is that signature on the front of the shorts. And we've seen this before with Wilt Chamberlain relics that they picked up. I showed you that yellow jersey, or some of the pieces of it, in the first video that I made. Well, that jersey was also signed, and they used a lot of those signed portions as patch cards or prime cards in Flawless. And I've got a sample here from Logo Man Shark's Instagram profile. He's got a lot of these really amazing cards. But anyway, you don't see that with other players. They don't use regular jersey pieces unless they're signed. They've started doing that a lot more, where they're using signed pieces as prime. I imagine that's what's going to happen with this pair of shorts as well. So that gives them a little more prime material. And yes, they are likely to cut that signature up into quite a bit of prime pieces if possible. Now, believe it or not, this wasn't the only autograph associated with this auction. And I didn't show you this before, but it came with a letter that someone had written up and Wilt Chamberlain had signed in 1995, basically saying that I wore these shorts. And I don't know, how Wilt Chamberlain would have known that necessarily, but he signed it. And my thoughts on that are, well, that's definitely going to end up in some sort of a cut autograph, because I know Panini, I know they use every little piece that they can. Like I said, it makes sense because they spent so much on this. So I went back to Beckett and I figured out, what are all the cut autographs that have come out for Wilt Chamberlain? Well, you've got some of the eminent stuff that came early on. I've got a picture of one of those on there. Well, that was before this auction was even purchased. So this auction was purchased in May of 2018. So I think it could possibly be one of the three on the right. They had this was an NBA branded Flawless Cuts, Wilt Chamberlain. There was a Flawless Collegiate, Wilt Chamberlain, and then there was another college version of Wilt Chamberlain. So I was able to find two of the three. So we know it's not either of those two. I have not seen the 2018 version anywhere. That was a 2-card set with Pete Maravich and Wilt Chamberlain. My guess is that it ended up in that card. And if it didn't, whenever Panini decides to use it, it's going to end up in one of their cut autograph sets. I feel pretty confident about that. Okay. The next portion that has not been used, I've not seen any pieces of this used yet, and there's a lot of material here, would be the waistband. And we know that they've used waistbands before, just from other cards that I've talked about. I know I've got a Bob Lanier patch that's got a big piece of a waistband on it. It's very common for them to use the cuffs from warm-up jackets or waistbands. Those pieces all look very similar. They can stretch those out and get a lot of pieces of fabric. Now, if I were Panini, which I'm not, but if I were Panini, I would try to use it with some of the white pieces so they could have a multicolor relic still. And there's a couple different ways that they could do that. You see on the left side, I've got to where they could make kind of longer pieces, but then that would leave a lot of that blue material at the top, which, yeah, they could consider that prime, but it would just be blue. It just, wouldn't be white and blue. Or they could cut it like I've got on the right here, which I think is what they should do, just longer pieces. So they're using that band. And actually, they could really unstitch that band and probably use the other side of it as well, because it's pretty thick. And I've seen other companies use the bands of shorts. I know Sport Kings and Leaf, President's Choice, they've all, and it might even be the same pair of shorts they've all been using. I don't know. But they've used that pair of that band as well. So anyway, there you have it. That is my breakdown of the Wilt Chamberlain shorts and what I think could be left and what I think Panini might do with it. I hope you enjoyed that. I like putting that stuff together. It does take a lot of time, though, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.